Hello and welcome to Pod Hunter by Edition with the SuperCoach Hub. I'm Scoop, and today we're going to be going through some of the lower owned options to bring into your team through this period. This is the time where there's a lot of players out, a lot of players coming in to replace them in those origin sides, meaning there's a lot of shuffling and a lot of really good, spicy pods to put into your team. Now, I'm going to be looking in the top 10% ranked for the relevant ownership in players. There's probably a lot of over or well under 10% that really aren't relevant at all or are way too much owned because of a lot of abandoned teams, things like that. So I'm going to start a little bit higher than I usually do. Instead of cutting off around 10%, I'm going to start at 12.7 with Mark Nwangwanita-Wase. So he is pretty heavily brought in this week, probably one of the more popular options, you might even say. So why is he a pod? Well, still only about 10, 15% of people own him. That's 85, 90% of people that don't. Now, Nawa has been an absolute beast the last few weeks. That try that he scored on the weekend, one of the most athletic, instinctive things I've ever seen. But yes, he's threatened to break out with his offloading, his tackle breaking, all of these strong scoring abilities. And finally, now he's hitting the tries. So these last couple of games have come on the wing with a bunch of 90s, which is very, very juicy. Moves back to centre this week with Rob Toy being selected for Origin. Good luck to Rob, but it means that Nama goes to the centres and Dom Young comes onto the wing. So not as ideal for him this week, potentially, and with a tough matchup against the Sharks, he just took down the Storm. That's a little bit of a knock against him, a rough one. But the good thing with Nawa, he plays 12, he plays 15 against the Knights too, and he plays 18. All three major buy rounds, and he's going to be invaluable over this period. And when Origin's over, or if Toya comes out of the team when Murray Taulagi is fit, we're going to see Noah back on the wing in those good buys and quite a lot of tries. He's such a good finisher, is Marky Mark. I still like him. He's gone up a fair bit in price, and he is pretty comparable. Let's go up and look for Iro. He is pretty comparable to Iro now. Iro's a little bit higher owned and about 40k more expensive. The gap is a bit smaller than it used to be, so I would not blame you for going the safety net of Iro instead with a good team getting consistent tries. But one mark against him, what if he doesn't score tries? What if he stops scoring? He's going to get a bunch of 50s and 60s, which for a centre wing, that's really good with no attack. But similar for Mark, if he doesn't get any attack, he'll drop as well. So I think Mark on the wing for most of the games in the foreseeable future, he's going to be a very strong bring in with huge buy coverage, especially if you're low on trades like me. Only reason why I'm buying Hero over him at the moment is because I'm not bringing in Fanua Blake because I have 13 this week already. If I did, I would probably decide that I had too many Sharks to handle with fair buys and go Nwangwanita-Wase instead. Very close to going him myself this week. Let's continue down this list. I like Nwangwanita-Wase, somebody that you have to talk about at this point, just because of where he's priced and the fact that we have a few players that are missing this week that have just come off really shocking scores. Would you sell Drinkwater or Pappenhausen over this period? My answer would probably be no. They're probably two of the three that you want by the end of the season, or at least probably two players in the top 5 fullbacks by the end of the season. But if you're holding on to Kalen Ponga still, Turbo's a pretty close straight swap. And he's 400k cheaper than Teddy, which a lot of people are bringing in. Now, the problem with Turbo is that although he is a truly legendary Supercoach scorer, he just doesn't look right. He's a bit busted. He doesn't look like he's having the impact he has in previous years, but it is his 3rd week back from injury. He has 3 major bye rounds like the Roosters, the Sea Eagles also have played 3 major byes. Tommy Turbo, if he turns it around this week, third week back from injury, against a weak Eels who are even more depleted, it's the perfect week to have that bounce back and to stop those price slides potentially. Do I think that'll happen? I'm not so confident, but if you're keen to take a bit of a risk and jump on him straight up to try and hit that big first score, which is what pods are all about, you could be really, really benefiting. If he plays too well, he could find himself in the Origin arena, but that's another conversation. And there's still other players that aren't fit and available at the moment. So maybe Tommy stays in clubland this year for the first time in a while. Yeah, the thing with the Sea Eagles I did want to mention, especially with Turbo, is in his next few games, he plays Para, Broncos with Origin players backing up, so a little bit tough. Newcastle, Titans, with a few Origin players missing. That is just about as soft as it gets. And if you've got Garrick, a huge VC option for pretty much most of those weeks. And Turbo could really turn it around in that time and shoot back up in price. I really, really wish we had seen something on the weekend. But yeah, he scored, I think it was 18 in the end. I just don't like the look of Turbo at the moment, but the stats say that if he is fit, he is a roaring buy. The fitness is my only problem. All right, let's continue down this list. If you can't buy an expensive centre wing to replace Curaz, or maybe you're still holding on to margin, you need to sell him as well, and you can't quite reach Iro, you can't quite reach Nonganitawaze, I think Lehigh Hopewade is probably your next best shout. He is still under 10% owned in the top 10%. He's pretty heavily brought in this week. 6.3%. And for the same reasons as Turbo, great draw. He was very close to a few tries of the weekend, and he still scored 89. I think there is a legitimate chance that he pops up at least 100K and puts some really good scores up, maybe even some big tons against these really weak teams. If Turbo does go to fullback for the Blue, if Turbo does go to Origin, it is in all likelihood that Hopewade goes to fullback, where he averages about 80. I don't expect that to happen, but it will just be an added bonus. And I don't think that he will be a final centre wing keeper in your team. That's my only knock against him. So his price makes it a little bit of an awkward one, but he fills that spot and he covers a lot of rounds and could score well for you over this period. And maybe you can upgrade him at like low to mid 600s or something like that by the end of, I think, round 19 they have the bye. Let's have a look. They play round 12, 15, and 18, and yeah, they missed 19. 19 is going to be a bit of a dangerous one, guys, so just watch out for that. I think Raiders, Manly, and Souths have the bye in 19. That's going to be a bit of a cooked week, considering we do have to play 17. Some relevant guys on there. But yes, I think Hopewade is a very valid purchase this week on the wing. All right, we're going to come to our first cash down now. Unfortunately, he's not dual, and I talked up Laurent Patea the other week. Turned out to be a little bit of a dud, but this bloke played 45 minutes last week, and the Bulldogs are missing a lot more players this week than they were last week. If you need a guy to just sit in your team and potentially be a number in these bye weeks and then disappear, I think that Lipui Hopoi is your guy. He could be like a Ferrotti type who rushes up 150K and then just sits as a red dot until you need to cash him out if you want to later on. That's how I view him. I don't think he'll become an auto emergency nightmare when everybody's back, but there will be weeks throughout this period that he's not fantastic. But for late season, I don't think he'll be a problem with that because he's only played the 2 games. is pretty good, but in this period with Man out, with Preston still suspended, Salmon out for 10 weeks, no Max King, there's a lot of reasons why Hopwell could get minutes, and at just about base price, if you need a number in each of those 3 weeks to potentially be in that 13, or if he scores a good one, gets filtered into that top 13 out of 18 at a cheap price to leverage up a few things, he ticks a lot of boxes. I quite like him. So if you're keen on somebody to cash down to, I think that he's a good one. Maybe you've got Dylan Egan in your team. That would free up about 300k to use to potentially turn. Well, if you had some duels and you're playing Campbell at fullback, you could potentially even turn somebody like Karaz or Marzu straight up to Teddy, or even Ponga almost all the way up to Teddy, things like that. It's really handy to be able to shove the money into your starter team at this point of the year. The other winger that you could buy instead of one Lehigh Hopewade is Ronaldo Mulatalo. So he's finally started to turn around and score those tries that we were waiting for. Look at that try drought. He's somebody that you could pretty much bank on for like 15 tries a year, year on year, and then he barely saw the try line until the last month. But now he scored 110, 74, and 84 in 3 of his last 4 games. And that's a 4-round average of about 75. Yeah. So he can have a dud one, but he's pretty handy over this period. He plays 12, he plays 15, he plays 19, he plays 16. So he plays all major and minor buys apart from next week and round 18. That's pretty handy. With the Sharks they're doing this funny swap thing with Iro and Mulatalo moving between centre and wing a little bit throughout the game. I think that's good for both. Probably more Iro because he'll see more wing, but Mulatalo is going to be able to come in the middle of the field, do some more creative inventing rather than just sitting on the wing as well. I think that Mulatalo, as well as Lehigh, isn't quite a final team keeper, but he's at a price where you can really just bring him in and really lean into some of these good scores. And if you need to later on with some trades, upgrade him back to like a Kiraz eventually. Okay, my filter has run away, so let's put that back on and we'll continue down this list. Many of these guys are probably players who you've been potentially looking at to bring into your team this week. Not relatively highly discussed, relatively highly brought in. But this is the buy rounds. I'm gonna look to push into these really, really out there guys as we head down this list. So one of the last pretty heavily recognised ones is Matt Burton. Now, there's a couple whispers that Galvin may go to the Dogs. There's whispers that Galvin may be released before the end of this bye round that the Tigers are going through, things like that. But Burton is finally getting there. He got the goals back last week. Yes, Crichton's in Origin, so we can't say for sure, especially if he's carrying a bit of a niggle, but he has historically been their goal kicker most of the time. And he's now at a price where he's a lot cheaper than your Dylan Browns, your Munsters, your Jaden Campbells. And again, these buy period players are incredibly valuable. He plays those 3 major buys. The Bulldogs, the Seagulls, and the Roosters are the 3 that do. They're all incredibly valuable through this period. So the Bulldogs play a busted Dolphins, soft Eels, depleted Rabbitohs. That's a tough game there against a Panthers team looking to rev up the back end of the year, and then a depleted Broncos in round 18. So there's a lot to like. And for the Bulldogs who have been flying, there's potential for them to finally put the hammer down and put some serious points on some other teams. This week, with a lot of players out, it's either going to make Burton not be able to do as much or he's going to have to stand up and win the game for them. There's no Stephen Crichton. There's no Kurt Mann. There's no Max King. And there's no Kiraz. So he's going to need to put the tape on his back going forwards. And I think he's one that can do it. I like the fact that he's got the goals back. I think that's what would push me over the edge to make me buy him this week if I was looking to get a 5/8. Okay. Now we're going down into the weeds. I've got 3 more to go. And the first one I want to look at is, actually, let's just look him up, is Jesse Ramian. So Ramian is quite low ownership, but that eye poke pushed his price down even more. For similar reasons to Ira and Mulatalo, the Sharks going on runs is beneficial for him. And the Sharks could really beat up on some teams in this origin period with basically not losing any players. It's very, very handy. And he's now priced about 50, even slightly less. Break even is not great, but if you need somebody to chuck in that will score you a bunch of at least 50s and 60s, Ramian's your guy. Ramian has got a humongous base and power, and he's been really not dropping that much. Look at all these 60s and 50s without doing that much. That 6 pulls his price down quite a lot. Maybe you buy him next week, but maybe he doesn't drop anything. And against the Roosters, he finally gets going. Look at that. No tries since round 1, and he hit a 90 then. And look at all the 50s and 60s he's hit since then without anything, really. Really fantastic signs for him to just have that period where every year that he seems to, and just explode and make you a bunch of money and a bunch of points if you jump on at the right time. Now, Liam Henry. This one might shock a few people, but what did he do last year? What did he do the year before? He was their big minute guy. He's a PPM weapon. And on the 3 games he started the edge last year and played really big minutes, he scored 76, 73, and 54, with another couple of big games in the middle there just because his PPM is huge. A couple of years ago, we were all super excited because there were all of these players coming through with monster PPMs. There was Couchman Brothers, there was Terrell May, there was Jermaine Hopgood, there's Liam Henry's the next one off that conveyor belt. When he gets a bigger minute role at the Panthers, he will be a PPM beast. Might even be a front row forward potential keeper in the near future. When will that happen though? When will that breakout hit? I think there's potential for it to start now. We saw what he could do last year. Does he start to take that next step and show that he can do that again? And with Garner concussed and IPAP out for another couple of weeks, you're at least going to get a few weeks of huge Liam Henry minutes. Which week is it? There's a week where the Panthers origin players aren't backing up to go to New Zealand, I think it is. Is it Liam Henry? Anyway, there's a week where the Panthers aren't going to play. The origin players aren't going to play because they have to travel to New Zealand and they're going to rest all their origin stars. There's potential for him to do really well there. There's potential for him to do well through this origin period at quite a nice low price. He could hit you a 70 this week in pure base. He could hit you an 80 this week in pure base. And against the Knights team, if he goes over for a try against all those missing players, you would be laughing all the way to the bank. Bit of an out there one, bit of a spicy one. I couldn't walk it out of him. Last one, I brought him up the other week, and it is time for him to shine. Is it K or is it H? There it is. Zach Docker Clay. So quite a few people have McInnes, quite a few people have Sandon Smith. But if you don't have plans in the hooker position, this bloke is quite cheap. He has no Connor Watson. The Roosters have all their players backing up in the origin Origin weeks, and then the week where they're full strength, they don't play. So let's have a look at these games. Arguably, for non-Origin replacements, the Roosters have the best bye schedule of all. So round 12, Origin. Round 13, they play. Round 14 at full strength, they miss. 15, Dr. Clay's playing. 16, Roosters backing up, potentially okay-ish minutes and doesn't drop break even too much. 18, again. 19, again. So he's not a long-term player, but he can do a job for you these next 7 or 8 weeks. I think he is a really, really useful guy that will get you useful scores. I mean, when he's played this year for big minutes, he scored a 71 and he scored a 75. That's great. He's a real workhorse, and the only thing that I can really say against him is there's a bench hooker on the Roosters interchange this week. That could hurt him a little bit, but also Zach Docker-Clay has been coming on playing a bit in the middle, and Connor Watson's been playing 80. He could just be there as insurance for Docker-Clay, like Docker-Clay is there for Watson as insurance if he goes down or Sandon goes down. Like that week that Sandon did go down and he went straight to hooker and scored 75. That's the value of Docker-Clay. If anything goes wrong in that rotation, he'll play big minutes. If anything goes wrong with the Roosters, that bench hooker will go and do other things. So I really love Zach Docker-Clay as an option if you need a hooker, and he is well down there. I think he's like 0. something 0.3 0.3% owned in the top 10%. That is a nuclear pod. I really like him, to be honest, and he can free up some nice cash to be able to do some other moves. Let's keep it there for now. There's only so many players you can buy for Origin or prepare for Origin. Sometimes the best options are just the slam dunks, like buying Olakwatu if you don't have him without Origin. Big in. That's an easy one. But if you need some players and you aren't sure who to get and you have options, definitely consider some of the guys on this list, because SuperCoach is often won and lost in the buys. If you trade well, if you manage your squad well to get a good 13, 14, 15 players in these major buy weeks and can go big through this period when a lot of players are sitting out, you make up a lot of ranks. So happy planning, and let's get ready for Origin 1.